All right, all right. Although I'm only going to say that two times and not three, because I am not Matthew McConaughey or Jesse Deadman.
uh,
Welcome to Real Monsters. It's another fine, fine Thursday night. This time, it's November.
look, thumbs down for that.
Yeah, I'm your host, S.K. Barrett. Joining me, as always, the lovely and talented Wes Hobrick.
Yellow, yellow, yellow. I guess
And
that's the Illinois version of all right, all right, all right. And you got the Texas one with Matthew and Jesse.
yeah, I'm not Texan, so I'm not going to try that.
Well, at least you guys and them can have some pride in where you're from. Don't really do that, see that much in Illinois.
You don't see, Illinois Pride bumper stickers anywhere?
Nope. See, the dog even hates Illinois, so
Yeah.
there you go.
So tonight we are talking about the Hillside Strangler.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because it is
Yeah,
plural, right?
uh, technically, yeah. But the reason that we left it not plural there is because through most of the investigation, most of the police thought we were just looking for one, which of
Ah,
course was not true
was not
when
true.
all was said and done. But
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to talk about the buddy's role in all of this. Buono.
hmm well, the cousin.
Yeah.
I mean, they are
Right, right,
blood
right, cousin.
relatives, but yeah, yeah. I don't think it's really all that different from the other duos we've looked at, but we can get deeper into that as we progress. So
Oh, definitely got to put the warning up.
yeah, good idea.
Let's get that going here. Because graphic shit is coming your way. If you don't like it, move on.
Yeah,
Now's the chance to bail out on this if you don't like graphic discussion, descriptions, or images.
we have warned you in more ways than one.
Yep, it's on you now.
Yep,
All right.
absolutely.
This week in crime history, or just in crime.
I do have a couple items there for that for the news. November 1. Inmate finds marijuana in his nostril after 18 years.
Um,
I don't even know how that's possible.
yeah, wow. Now,
He apparently stuck it up there when he was in jail and he's a free man now and he sneezed and it came out.
convenient.
Yeah,
Although there
yeah.
probably were some times in jail in the last 18 years that he wished he'd had it.
Oh, I'm sure. I just don't know how it could get lodged that far up there and you wouldn't know for that long.
Well, maybe he did know. He just didn't know he could get it back.
Well, that could be. Imagine that would be a decent degree of pain you'd be talking about if it's that
Yeah,
far up. But
probably in a baggie or something, right? Or a balloon or something.
oh no, this was just a bud of marijuana.
What?
Yeah, yeah, no packaging, just the marijuana.
So
So,
just snotty marijuana.
yep,
That is one big booger.
yeah, dang. Let's see. An Airbnb Halloween party shooting in LA kills four, which that ultimately prompted the company to issue new rules
No
that
shootings.
are, um, well, no parties, I suppose, was more or less the rule.
Oh, 'cause yeah, I think I'd heard about how some like especially college age young adult types would rent an a single Airbnb room and then have like 20 people over at the house.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I think it's intended to put a stop to. So,
Because, come on, nobody's expecting you to show up with your entire, fraternity at somebody's house when they're just renting you a fucking room, man.
yeah, exactly. It goes way beyond the contract with something like that.
S-
Um,
yeah, and definitely beyond the rules of a civilized society. You don't go into a
Absolutely.
stranger's house, Jesus, and party down
um,
and wreck the place.
oh, yeah. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Fugitive said he would turn himself in on Halloween if police photoshopped a costume onto his mugshot. So they did. They got him.
And he came in, huh?
Yeah, different, but man, my God, the most infuriating Halloween story that I saw, and I put this up on our page, and it also pissed a lot of people off justifiably. A mother in Australia was giving chickenpox laced candy to trick or treaters.
Okay. I have
She's an
so
anti
many
vaxxer.
I have so many questions about this.
Mm hmm.
Yeah, so first of all, disgusting. I mean,
Mm hmm.
just on the surface of it, it's disgusting. And it's quite possibly criminal.
Oh, yeah. Australia police are looking at getting her 15 years for doing it.
Yeah, that's like biological terrorism.
Yeah. And her excuse was, oh, I'm building the kids' immunity to it.
Nobody asked her to do that.
No. No, and she isn't even. I mean, you're breeding
No.
new diseases this way.
Yes.
And not to mention, did anybody explain to this brain dead bitch that that's how vaccines work?
Yeah, but she didn't use mercury.
Oh, yeah, she's not an evil pharmaceutical company
Right.
trying to harm our
So,
kids.
so was there any description on how she infected this candy?
She gave it to her kid to lick and then put it back in the package.
Yeah, I don't think that'll do it anyway. As
Let's hope
far
not.
as if I'm not, I might be mistaken on this, but I think chickenpox is a skin contact transfer.
I'm not sure
And I,
on
I
that.
think you have to get it from a pustule.
Hmm. Maybe. I mean, I honestly don't know.
It's like
If
it's
any
not
medical
airborne,
people are
right?
listening, feel free to correct
I'm
us
pretty
too.
sure it's not airborne or saliva borne unless the kid had it in his mouth, which does happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
It used to be chickenpox used to be one of those that there wasn't a vaccine for, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't as scary, dangerous as smallpox.
As long
Uh,
as you got it when you were a kid.
if you got it when you're a kid. So what they used to do is have chickenpox parties. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making this shit up. So somebody's kid would get chickenpox, then they would get all the friends together who hadn't had it before, and they would spread it around to get it over with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean they would, but still. And even with a lot of that you're talking about, if it doesn't wreak havoc when they're kids, it often can when they get older too, in the form of the shingles
Which is
virus.
brutal by all
That
accounts.
that's what I hear. Very painful.
Yeah.
Oh, and to top it all off with this, I'm not sure how correct it is, because I did have a source say that this isn't correct, but she also says she's an RN, the woman who did this.
Uh,
But then I had a source who came to me and said, no, she's not an RN. The hospital that she said employed her denied employing her. So it's just icing on the cake, I guess. But um, See, Georgia cop gets 12 years for shooting a unarmed, naked black man. Texas mother and her
Whoa,
3 kids murder suicide.
whoa, whoa. What? I hate to ask what his weapon was.
His sidearm. But yeah. hmm Oh, Patty says how it spreads by mother to baby, by pregnancy, labor, or nursing.
No, because you get it. Coughs or
Uh,
sneezes.
well, she
Skin
also
con.
says airborne respiratory droplets, coughs or sneezes, skin to skin contact, handshakes or hugs, saliva, kissing or shared drinks, touching a contaminated surface, blanket or doorknob. Thank you, Patty. Like I
So,
said, I am not a
so unlike
specialist in
VD, you can
biology.
catch it from a toilet seat.
Oh, that's good. Um, oh, yeah, and this is interesting. I actually caught this in my local news. There's a raid on a daycare in Des Moines, Iowa, where they apparently found about 5 kids, about 20 or so illegal guns, and several pounds of methamphetamine. The daycare itself was unlicensed. So,
Which in most states, you don't have to be licensed up to a certain number of children. If you,
correct. Yep.
right, whether
Yeah,
they, did they exceed that? I don't know.
they did. The limit up there for a license was something like, I think, 3 to 5.
Yeah, that's typical.
And then they had somewhere on the order of, I want to say, 10 kids there. So,
Yeah, and if they're related to you, then it doesn't count against your
hmm
total. Like you can have 15, nieces and nephews, and that doesn't count as in a lot of states anyway. Like
yep.
they can't make you get a license to babysit family.
hmm Exactly. Oh, 5 men acquitted by a Madrid court of rape because the unconscious victim could not fight back. That was the rationale.
Um, um,
Yeah, I'm not sure how they got to that. Um, yeah, and then you had this was November the 5th, the acid attack on a Hispanic man in Milwaukee, literally pouring acid on him and telling him to go back to where he came from. Never mind the fact that the man is a American citizen.
well, he came from his mommy,
Well,
but nobody
I'm
wants to go
just
there.
I'm just glad they got the son of a bitch who did it.
That's,
I hope
you
they
know
throw the
what?
book at him.
Jesus, people, just let people live.
hmm Yeah, I mean, this guy was just minding his own business, and lo and behold, this guy had acid. It would seem to me that that would connote a degree of premeditation, though, too. You know? I mean, who just carries acid with them wherever they go? But I don't know. Anything like that, I'm sure, will come out at trial. Oh, and then you have the woman who might be jailed over a library book that was late.
Yeah, how late was it?
I think it's something like 2 years.
Well, oh, big fucking deal.
Yeah, that was my thought, too.
I bet I have a book on my shelf that came from my high school library.
Oh, yeah.
Probably.
I mean, how many people did fit that bill, you know? Yet they're going to waste state resources in going after her.
But at least she didn't bribe college officials or something minor like that. This is serious shit.
At least she didn't jaywalk, right?
Yeah.
And um, missing New Hampshire couple found buried at a Texas beach. That was an interesting tale. Oh, and in the further inexorable march to hell that humanity is on, there was a stabbing, a fatal stabbing over a Popeye's chicken sandwich in Maryland.
What was the like the last one in the state?
Something like that, I guess. One guy I was talking to about this said they need to change the headline to "Chicken so good you'll kill for it." I thought that was clever. Uh, oh yeah, and then you had the man in Georgia who called 911 over his stolen pot. File that one under dumb criminal. And then
Jeez.
probably one of the bigger stories of the week: the
Yeah.
9 Mormon missionaries, right over the border was
They weren't
Chihuahua, I
missionaries. It was
think was the.
it was just a family. It was three families.
Oh, so the missionary part, they weren't doing missionary
No,
work,
no, no, no.
you're saying. Okay.
It was three women and their kids.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, they are. Uh, it's really difficult for the media to get this right, but as an offshoot, they really are not official Mormons. They are in Mexico because they want to practice polygamy.
Oh, uh-huh. Yeah,
That's
that's one thing the U.S. government should just get off their backs about if they want to do it here.
agreed. But I mean, the reports say that yes, they're an offshoot, but they still call them Mormons, and maybe that's fine, I guess. But yeah, they're in Mexico. There's a number of polygamous communities in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Staying out of the way of the law, and they have oftentimes property in the southwest United States as well. And they are not all really, you know, nice homespun, old timey kind of good people. A lot of times
Mm-hmm.
people are kept there against their will.
Oh
Uh,
my.
um,
At
and
any rate, I think this was the
I know this
Chihuahua
from secondhand
province.
experience. I know somebody who had been in one of those communities and escaped,
Oy.
and
Oh
it
wow.
was not, and there was nothing pleasant about it for her.
Dang. Yeah, from what I heard after the 9 shot by drug cartels. Initially, they were saying mistaken identity, but other reports say that's bullshit. They knew who they were shooting at.
Really.
Um, yeah, but a couple of them are in a hospital in Tucson right now. So,
I heard a story that a teenage boy grabbed some kids and hid behind some rocks, and then walked 14 miles for help.
eesh, wow. Yeah, I didn't hear that one. The one that I heard was a 14-year-old girl survived, but it's in the ICU right now.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah,
oh,
this is the kind of stuff. So
mm-hmm,
this is the kind of, remember the main kind of story that can really alter the course of history.
oh
Um,
sure.
the cartels, there's no question that the cartels are out of hand, that the local, state, and federal government in Mexico is corrupt to their eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just right there next door to us. And all that shit is spilling over the border. And even when it's kept within their borders, it's still fucking with U.S. citizens. The murders and kidnappings and ransoms and all that kind of nasty shit goes on every goddamn day down there.
Mm-hmm.
The Mexican fucking army just last week lost a shootout with the cartels in broad
Over El
daylight.
Chapo's son. Yep. Yep, they did. Man, I remember reading a report like 2 or 3 weeks ago where they were scared about the country going forward, about the actual continuity of Mexico, Mexican government
They
right
could
now.
if if something isn't done fairly quickly, by us. I hate to say it, but who else is going to do it? They could just turn into Somalia really
Hmm.
fast,
Yeah.
where the government is just, whoever's got the biggest army.
Hmm.
And guess what? It isn't the government. The government does not have the biggest army anymore.
No, it's the cartels. Absolutely.
And they don't play
Uh,
by the rules, so they can just do whatever the fuck they want.
no, criminals by definition don't play by the rules. Um, but yeah, to end on a few funny ones, a couple funny ones. Did you see the Louisiana man who got a DWI for a cart he was driving from a supermarket to a bar?
Was he on the
So
street or on the sidewalk?
he was on the street, I believe.
Well, there you go, dumbass.
Yeah.
I
Oh
the
yeah.
thing is he could have got nailed for public intoxication
Yeah,
even if he
absolutely.
was on foot.
Yep. And then Florida man gropes Disney princess at the Magic Kingdom.
Jesus.
Yep. Strange,
It's
strange man.
Does he not realize it's a person? Think it's just a animatronics? What the hell?
I think with a lot of the Florida man stories, you kind of have to, at some level, throw bath salts into the mix because they're probably a
And
factor.
sunstroke.
Yep. Yep. And coming out of Margaritaville.
Yeah, Jesus.
That's one thing I've never understood is people that like Jimmy Buffett. Sorry, not sorry if you're one of them. I'm just not a fan.
Well, just a fun kind of. It's the fun kind of alcoholics, I guess,
Yeah.
or
Well, like
something.
Cartman said with that, it's only frat boys and alcoholic chicks from the South who like Jimmy Buffett. So,
Ah, and
just an opinion.
not even the frat boys anymore.
No, I don't think so.
They're kind of past that.
Yep.
All right, so
The
the
Hillside
topic at hand.
Strangler. The Hillside Strangler.
Z.
LA. They seem to be kind of in second place for serial killers, it seems.
How do you mean second place?
Well, behind Washington in the Pacific
Ah,
Northwest.
yeah.
But, yep.
Well, we've got a tie on this guy.
Yeah, that we do. Well, guys,
California and Washington share this one.
they do. They do actually, although it was only 2 bodies in California
Yeah.
when they did that.
All
So,
right. So where does this story begin?
this really kind of begins in Rochester, New York, where Ken Bianchi was born. And getting into that, I mean, we've talked about this before with certain ones where they have being adopted as part of their history, right?
Yeah.
That was also a part of Ken's history. And it really, I think, in combination with his very controlling mother, it
Bundy
made him. Oh, go ahead.
Bundy was adopted, but very young.
Mm-hmm.
Um.
Berkowitz was
Yeah.
another.
Yep.
I'm not sure how old Bianchi was when he was adopted, but his mother, it seems, was very controlling as well. Um,
And
really
let me tell
kept,
you,
the
that can make you
screws on
want to kill
him.
somebody.
It did in a lot of ways with him, man. So what does he do? Um, well, first of all, when he is a teenager,
Yeah.
he is arrested for breaking into a girl's bedroom after she would not go out with him.
Yeah. That's such an incel move.
Well, yeah, I would agree, but your typical incel isn't able to do what Bianchi did after that.
Right.
And
Well,
that
I
was,
mean, Bianchi is a sociopath. Let's make no bones about that. And
yes.
that's why he could look at, well, I'll just break into her room, and that's a smart move. Is
Well,
is not.
oh no, it isn't at all, but he managed to talk them out of pressing charges for one, and
Ah, yeah.
then convince her to apologize to him.
Jesus. Right, right. Because he did have the charm.
Oh, absolutely.
Not all sociopaths have that. I was thinking about that today. Not all sociopaths have the charm. I mean, Dahmer
Mhm.
did not really have a lot of
No,
charm, for example.
no.
Um,
Bianchi really had it in spades, I think.
yeah. Gacy did not have any charm at all.
Uh, yeah, he compensated with his.
Right.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
he was Gacy was kind of grating had a kind of grating personality, but he had ways of compensating for that.
yeah, like the clown, being Pogo the Clown,
Right.
humor, what he did in business, but
But
yeah,
Bianchi showed his ability to charm on many occasions.
yes, his ability to charm and con, and that is ultimately what fed into how he and his cousin, who we'll get into in a minute, abducted and murdered, 10 women and girls. But, I was watching a couple interviews with people who were close to Bianchi, and they were explaining how psychopathy for him was almost a adaptation, they thought,
Hmm.
to his world of, this super controlling mother. So what's he do to fight it? He becomes a compulsive liar, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you live in a very controlling world and you want to rebel against that, you've got to be able to lie convincingly when you're caught.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. But yeah, at any rate, at age 23 is when he comes to LA to meet and live with the only person that he knows in the city, his 42-year-old cousin, Angelo Buono. And, Bianchi, before he came out there, had struck out on a few of his dreams, specifically trying to be a cop was the big thing with him.
Oh, how many times have we seen that? Well, for one, just the failed cop aspect. We've seen that a few times, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Um, but also just failing in whatever it is they have their heart set on. Hell, Germany would have had an entirely different history if Hitler had gotten into art school.
Yeah, this is true. Very true. Um, comparing and contrasting Bianchi and Bono is interesting too,
Yeah,
because Bono had a auto upholstery business out there, and he
yeah.
was actually pretty successful with that, and he was making decent money. So Bianchi lives with him for a time in that house,
But doesn't
and
work
then
for him?
no, he didn't actually. He was pursuing other jobs, first as a LAPD reservist, and then secondly, in security, where he ended up working for a private security company before being kicked out of a variety of jobs for usually petty theft of what he was hired to guard. So,
Yeah. Talk about the fox in the hen house.
yep, I was just looking for my spot there.
Well, and
And
he was not a good student. he had raw intelligence, but he had lacked any ability to apply himself.
Well, that, and he also had a lot of braggadocio. Really had a huge need to brag.
Mm,
And that's a big part of what um, got him in the end, too. But yeah, he stole merchandise as a security guard. And, Buono, he has this successful business, but his big thing, it really throughout most of his life, was an insatiable appetite for violent sex. Um, Bianchi recalled seeing in his cousin's wallet all these different photos of teenage girls that all say, like, call me on the back or love you and what have you. Um, and then Bono also often held orgies
mm,
at his house. And he would often share the girls that he was with his cousin.
okay.
But
So why
the
wasn't that enough?
for Bianchi,
Yeah.
yeah, well, it's interesting to look at how it escalated, which we'll get to.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going is
Hmm.
how does this escalate? Because right, at this point in the story, you've got a couple of horn dogs who are,
Hmm.
at least reasonably successful in meeting girls and having sex.
Hmm.
And you know what? That should be enough, right? You'd think.
One would hope, but often with these guys, you see that sort of escalation too. Um, let's see, Bono. The other thing was he tied up and violently raped both his wives.
Oh,
Um, but I think what really got to the escalation part there was when Bianchi had the idea of the two of them becoming pimps.
oh,
So what did they do? They talk basically to these two teenage girls who had frequented the sex parties. And they said, we think that you could model. We're going to get you modeling gigs.
oh,
We're
that
going to
line.
buy you, yeah, yeah, we're going to buy you expensive dresses, clothes, and the whole thing. And of course, none of the gigs materialized with
Right.
any of that. So they've
There were no
said,
gigs. Yeah.
right, there never was.
Right.
So they said, you two need to start turning tricks to pay us back, basically. And then they would also take turns raping them in between that. So it got to that point, and ultimately the two girls ran away. And that, I think, is what pissed them off. So what do? In going to look for another prostitute, they jump the gun a little bit, and Bianchi strangles her in the back of the car.
Did
That
that
was
kills her?
Yolanda Washington, yes, as a revenge killing,
Ah.
basically.
Do you think they intended to?
Um, it's hard to tell with that one. I mean, the revenge is certainly intended, but I'm not sure if they intended to kill her. Um,
Because this is the first one for both of them, right? I mean, Bianchi, you know, Angelo, he's just been kind of minding his own business more or less. Bianchi's
hmm
pretty low level shit and nothing
hmm
violent up to that point.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean,
it
other than raping, but I mean,
it it may not be the first for Bianchi.
really?
Actually, he was a suspect in the Alphabet murders over in Rochester, but he's never conclusively tied to any of them.
Hmm.
And that was where he had a series of women and I think a couple men who their first name was the same letter of the town that they were found in. And that's why they called it the Alphabet Murders.
Oh, okay.
Um, but yeah, there was, I'd have to look that up to
Oh,
find out how many
it's
there
okay.
were. Yeah, Bianchi was a suspect in that, but he was never conclusively tied to it. But Getting into the observable timeline, because the police didn't have any idea of everything we were just talking about with
Right.
Ken and Angelo at the moment. November 1st, 1977, La Crescenta, California, a 16-year-old hooker named Judy Miller is found with 5 pronounced ligature marks on her body. She was raped and sodomized. Let's see, 5 days later, Lissa Carter, another prostitute, is found in basically the same condition, and her body is dumped in the woods around the Chevy Chase Country Club. I didn't even know he had a country club back
I'm sure it's no relation.
then. Oh, but yeah, identical ligatures there. November 13th, Dolores Zapata, excuse me, age 12, and Sonia Johnson, age 14. Their bodies weren't found until November 20th, though. And then November 20th, you had a third separate body that was found, Christina Welter, also age 20, all again with the strangulation as the mode of death and the identical ligatures. By Thanksgiving, you had Jane King, age 28, Yolanda Washington, who was actually the first prostitute that they killed.
Hmm.
And she was found separately near the Warner Brothers lot. All these others are being dumped on hills around LA,
Right.
particularly Glendale. And that's where you get the name, Hillside Strangler. They also found later on when Buono was on their radar that how they dumped the bodies formed a pretty interesting circle around where his house sat. Not sure why, but that's how they found him. And it was by now, by Thanksgiving, that the LAPD decided to alert the public. They also created a 30-man task force to find the Strangler. November 29th, Lauren Wagner. And this is where you first get the description that it's 2 men. A neighbor saw the 2 in a dark sedan. And they figured with that and the fact that none of these bodies had defensive wounds on them, that it
Yeah.
was very likely that the guys were police or impersonating police.
Oh. So that was their ruse.
Yes, to get them into the car for the most part. Although the torture that they employed was pretty fucking sadistic. One way that they would often subdue the victims and
Yeah.
ultimately kill them was by injecting Windex
What,
into their veins.
into their veins?
Yes.
Jesus. Cuz Windex has ammonia
Hmm.
among other things. That's nasty.
It also becomes acetone in your liver
Ugh,
from the research that I did.
that's brutal.
Yeah. So I asked a paramedic friend if he had seen anybody attempt suicide by injecting it. He said no. But
Well, that would not be quick at all.
no, but you would be surprised how people try to do that, try to die. My old doctor, before he transferred to sports medicine, was telling me a story about when he was doing ER rounds at Baylor in Dallas.
Yeah.
And they had one person in there who, when he wasn't looking, they swiped a bottle of, I think it was drain cleaner, and a hypodermic needle
From
and
the
injected
hospital?
themselves. Yes, yes. And that's how they did it.
Because drain cleaners basically lie,
Yeah,
and that would dissolve your veins like Ebola.
yeah. And that's, again, you'd be surprised. Although the stupidest story that he ever told me out of there
Yeah?
was the guy who came in with heart palpitations, anxiety, red skin. Come to find out, he was trying to quit smoking,
Okay.
but apparently he could not read directions when he bought the patch
Uh,
for it.
Oh, you
He
the
put them all
overdose.
on his body at the same time.
Nicotine is a very powerful poison. The
Yes.
only way it can be tolerated is in minute, minute doses. If you had a drop of pure nicotine in front of you and you touched it with your finger, it could kill you.
Yes. Yeah, this guy, he didn't die as far as I know, but I don't know how you'd have to be really stupid to do what he did.
Well, yeah.
But um yes, so getting back to the story there, November 29th, Lauren Wagner, where we got the description. December 13th, Kimberly Martin, age 17. This one was interesting because she was placed on a hill with her legs spread pointing to City Hall. They wouldn't usually sexually pose their victims.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Did it
not
and
really sure
they really
what.
felt like it was posed. I've seen pictures of, the of that scene and the city hall in the distance.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a lot of shit in that line of sight. There's no, assuming that it was targeted at City Hall is just, that's just reading into it.
That may be, but we still have the fact that they sexually posed her. And
Yeah,
they didn't do that with other victims.
true,
Um,
true. Yeah, but
mhm.
they probably had no idea where they were that they were facing City Hall.
Hmm. Yeah. I wonder why they did it, though, with her and not the others. Could be a
Maybe,
multitude of
yeah, it
reasons.
might have just been trying. Yeah, it could have been anything, right?
Hmm.
Could have been they felt like they had the time. It could be that they wanted to try something new. It could be that
Hmm.
they were trying to confuse the police.
Hmm. Scare more people, maybe.
Yeah.
But what really had me wondering here was February 13th, when they found an orange Datsun off a cliff with the body of 20-year-old Cindy Husband in the trunk, which was again tied to the Strangler because of the ligatures
Okay.
on her body. Why hide your work like that?
Who was it? Her car?
Yes, it was. It was her car.
Yeah, there's so many weird things that they never explained,
Hmm.
either one of them.
I mean, I don't know why you would do that unless, and let's not forget, we do have two minds working in tandem on this still. Unless it was because Angelo was starting to get nervous with the investigation,
Right.
and he thinks, we need to do a better job of hiding evidence.
Angelo, uh, he may have been fucked up in the head sexually to where he
Hmm.
was, enjoyed violent sex and rape. Um, but he wasn't a sociopath as near as we could tell. So it would have bothered him more.
I don't know. I think he was a sociopath
You think
too.
so?
He had, I think, better impulse control than
Okay.
Bianchi, but I still think the sociopathy was definitely there. Um, and it could just be because he was older too, you
Yeah,
know,
maybe.
that he's going to be better able to control that stuff. But yeah, it was about this time as well that Buono told Bianchi, you need to get out of town, lay low for a while. So what's he do? He takes off for Bellingham, Washington.
God damn it.
uh,
Well, he had a girlfriend, right?
yeah. And he laid low for some time.
He had a girlfriend, and she was from Bellingham. That's how he ended up there. Now, Bellingham is a is a lovely little town with a college, and it's on Puget Sound, and it's beautiful place. But
Right up there by the Canadian border,
yep,
isn't it?
yep,
Hmm.
just south of the Canadian border, just a few minutes away.
Was reading a little bit about that. Um, let's see. But that is where he kills two college roommates and leaves their bodies in one of their cars in the trunk again. So,
College girls, god damn it.
uh, yeah, he was clean through most of 1978 because this was January 11th of 79 when their bodies were found.
Yeah, and I had to go and double check this because I actually had been, I went for a weekend conference thing in Bellingham, but oh, thank God it was like the year before, 2 years before. Um, at
Hmm.
the latest it could have been was January of '78. So I missed crossing paths with yet another motherfucker by a year. But
Yep.
Jesus, that would have been too much. So did he married this girl though, didn't he? Wes, are you there? Hey, buddy.
Sorry, problem with my mic there for a
Okay.
second. I didn't see anything about him getting married, but
Oh,
he may
okay.
have.
It was just a girlfriend. I for some reason I thought that he
Hmm.
got
And
married.
I think she was just a girlfriend
Okay.
that he went up there to live with. So, yeah, they did that, and he murdered those two college roommates, but he got sloppy. The Bellingham police were on him pretty quick after they found a note with his name on it in their apartment.
Oh, right, because what was their oh they pretended to hire these two girls, right, for some security job.
Oh, good question. I'm not totally sure what the ruse was
I believe
with
that's
that.
what it was, and that's why. And then they sent him to this address that was fake. I mean, it was a real address, but there was no work there, and that's where he um, murdered him.
Hmm. Wow.
And that's why,
Yeah.
and because it was for a job, that's why they had it written down it back in their apartment or something.
Oh. Uh huh.
And
It makes sense.
that's how he got caught. It was
Dang.
not a good ruse.
No, I mean, it really wasn't. They brought him in and pretty quick with that. Um, and then they started tying these things together to the murders down in LA.
Yeah.
They call 1,300 miles to the south and let the LAPD know what's going on and start looking at it, and it all ties together. But the problem thus far
Yeah.
with having Bianchi in custody is that now you have a man who is starting to plead insanity.
Right.
And he's doing it convincingly enough to where you have about 8 different shrinks think he has multiple personality disorder. And I was just looking for my notebook on MPD.
Yeah, that was certainly a fad for a while.
It was, and like we were talking about off air, there's still people who don't think it's real.
I
And they
don't think
might
it's
have a point with that.
I don't think it's real.
I think that the constellation of symptoms can be a product of the therapy itself for
Yes,
it.
yes. I mean,
Um,
it's it definitely seems to be connected to recovered memories, false memories.
that was actually one thing that they used to try to get the memories out of Bianchi's head, because he also said that he suffered from headaches and blackouts, so
Right.
dissociative amnesia. They used a lot of these less skeptical doctors used triggered memory therapy.
But didn't Bianchi had a psychology background? What did he do? He did went to school or took some courses or something.
He uh,
He
he
studied
did
it
study it.
he did study in some way. Remember, he was not very well educated, but he was not stupid. He
No,
could
not by
learn.
any stretch. Yeah, the guy. I'm not sure what his exact IQ is, but I'm sure it's pretty high.
Yeah, it was definitely above average, let's say.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. But
so he studied um, multiple personalities. He was ready.
he did. He did.
He was
And
prepared for this.
to give people a bit of an idea here, here's a bit from the DSM-5.
Yeah.
So today's book
Okay.
on not multiple personality. They changed the name to dissociative identity disorder by then. Um, but your diagnostic criteria: A, disruption of identity characterized by two or more distinct personality states is a big thing.
Hmm.
And they say that this can also be explained as possession in some cultures, which I don't get that because it's not scientific.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a scientific term. So why are you going to go that far? Um, the second part of that, disruption in identity involves marked discontinuity in sense of self and sense of agency. And it's accompanied by related alterations in affect, behavior,
Hmm.
consciousness, memory, perception, cognition, and sensory motor functioning. And
One of the most famous cases, of course, was
mhm,
Sybil,
yeah, I
and
believe they poked some holes in that one too.
they absolutely did. Um, I took a screenwriting course several years ago, and one of the instructors was Stuart Stern, who won an Emmy for his TV script for the book Sybil.
Hmm.
And we had opportunity to hear some of his stories around that, um, because he read the book and said, "This is bullshit." And
Nice.
he totally just threw it out, and he contacted the doctor who treated her, and he did his entirely his own research on the subject,
Hmm. Oh
and
wow.
and with permission of Sybil, got to listen to session tapes,
Hmm.
and he played a few minutes of one session that he ended up being almost verbatim in the script.
Oh wow.
Right? So he played the scene from the movie and then played the recording, and it's like, and that was pretty fucking creepy, I gotta say.
Oh yeah. I mean, that sort of thing it sells definitely.
Um,
But
yeah, but by the way, according to Stewart, the lady who was not played Sybil, but who that the actual Sybil person, she went on to live quite a normal life, teaching art, I believe,
oh
in
wow.
middle school.
Well, there you go. Absolutely. But yeah, it was also looking for
but
it
by and large,
there.
I think it's bullshit. I think it's I think it's created in the therapy sessions.
Rather recently, there was a committee of doctors who sent a letter to the DSM people saying you need to take it out
Oh, there you go.
as a diagnosis. I thought they had a. I'm flipping through the DSM. Oh, here we go. There's a couple differential diagnoses that might be more appropriate for some of it. Other dissociative disorders, which definitely do exist, I think.
Sure.
Um, major depressive disorders, which can also include psychotic depression. Bipolar disorders, again, including psychotic, PTSD, some induced by substance medication, and they really should put therapy as part of that.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Um, seizure disorders, conversion disorders, which are functional neurological symptom disorders, and the last part of that, they really should give more of a section to it, fastidious disorders like Munchausen, and what Bianchi was doing, malingering.
Malingering. Malingering. Malingering, to put it in simple terms, is he was spreading bullshit.
Right, he's faking it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it was really interesting. There was one psychologist who observed him, Dr. Margaret Singer, out of some university in California. And she says, okay, I'm going to send the test results of Bianchi doing the Rorschach and then a hypnotic test.
Okay.
And then I'm going to send those same results of Bianchi's alter, the only one that came out, Steve Walker,
Yeah.
supposedly came out under hypnosis. I'm going to
Wait.
send.
Holy, I worked with a guy named Steve Walker.
Well, uh,
Damn it.
but yeah, she says I'm going to send the results from
Yeah,
both
right.
to Dr. Orn, a doctor, I think it's Martin Orn is his first name, out in the University of Pennsylvania. He's a forensic psychiatrist. He looks at this and he basically says that, in his opinion, Steve Walker is who Bianchi thinks his cousin really is. He's
Oh,
tough, he's violent, and he's overt. He's all about shock value.
right.
Yeah, is basically what he says. But
So he would just act like how he thought his cousin was.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
interesting. So he's not very creative then.
No, no, he really isn't. But Orn wasn't finished. He flew out there to or no, it was Washington because you're still having that part of it go on.
Right.
He flew out there and got Bianchi under hypnosis. And one test that he did was he said, okay, Ken, I'm going to wake you up, and your attorney's here. He wants to talk with you, so I'm going to leave you to do that. So he does that. But the thing was, the attorney wasn't there. But Bianchi acted like he was. And this behavior is not something that you would see if they were legitimately under hypnosis,
Right.
according to Orrin. But he had an even more basic way that he got him too. When one day he just says casually to Bianchi, you only have two? That's weird. Most people have more. Just drops it casually into conversation. And what do you see the next day out of Bianchi? Up to 10 separate personalities.
10?
Yeah, up to 10.
Jesus.
So yeah, the doctor was pretty clever and he got him.
Just totally set him up.
Yep. And
Awesome.
when Bianchi was presented with all of that, he
Yeah.
folded and he said, "Okay, I'll take a deal if you can spare my life."
Didn't he
And
try and blame it all on his cousin
he
at one
did in
point?
part, but the problem was the big part of that deal was you have to go and testify against Angelo
Mm,
because they were having a lot of trouble tying him to anything down in LA.
sure.
So he did that and he pled guilty to everything else, basically.
This is another one of those cases where you wonder about, I mean, when we talk about serial killer partners,
Hmm.
which are rare enough to begin with,
Oh, absolutely.
but there's always somebody who's more of the instigator. And
Absolutely.
the other partner is somebody who's, goes along willingly, but they would never, in most cases, they wouldn't have gone that far on their own. Like they wouldn't have been murderers necessarily. They might have been, they might have murdered somebody at some point. 'Cause like Angelo he was violent,
Yeah.
but he wouldn't have been a serial killer on his own.
Oh, absolutely. And then you have the variable of Ken being tied to, we know the two in Washington he did on his own,
Right,
um, and then possibly the alphabet murders.
right.
Uh, um, yeah, and to let people know, Bianchi is still alive. Angelo Buono died in '02, but
In jail.
Bianchi is still alive. Yeah,
Oof.
he did. Died in jail. Um, and Bianchi is one that we sent a letter to. So we'll see if we get a response from him.
Yeah.
But another serial killer group of two that I actually sent letters to both of them. These guys aren't in the spotlight as much, but the toolbox killers, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris.
Yeah.
They were, I think, most famous for creating tapes of their victims' screams. But
What was their time frame?
theirs was, I want to say, a couple of years before Hillside, like
Oh, really?
75. Yeah.
More 70s bullshit.
Also down in California, too. But they killed the people with everyday items you'd find in a toolbox.
Wow.
So
I
yeah,
forgot about those guys.
we'll see if we hear back from them too.
They must
If
be
you all
getting
have,
old.
yeah, they are. I mean, they're in their 80s, I think. And if anybody has a question that you would like us to mull over and pass on to any of them or to BTK, who we have heard back from,
Yeah.
Tex Watson, we have heard back from. Michael Swango, another that we have heard back from. Let us know, and we'll consider it and pass it along in a letter, and you might get an answer.
We did hear back from Berkowitz, but he doesn't want to play with us.
Yeah, Berkowitz declined, but I
Yeah.
did send him a second letter as a follow-up, um, and an apology because I forgot to include an article that I authored in the first letter. So, not expecting him to write back again. But I wanted to do that because I
Yeah.
screwed up that first one.
Yeah, it's all right.
Happens.
Yep. Yeah, so people were really it's difficult to imagine in today's world how terrifying these serial killers were in the 70s because it was kind of a new thing and they seemed to be popping up everywhere and it was freaking people out. It really was.
Oh yeah, it scared the shit out of LA for 4 months. You saw handgun sales go up for women. Self-defense classes was the other big thing that you
Well,
saw a
and
spike in.
don't forget this is the same time frame as Bundy
Yeah,
and and others.
and the Manson murders were less than
The
10 years
Manson,
before
yeah,
this.
the Manson murders and this. this actually started crossing over into Green River Killer territory timeline. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Berkowitz was in the 70s.
Yep.
Um, God, when was Lucas and what's his name?
They were in the 70s as well.
Yes,
Into the 80s with them though too.
right. So all of this shit's going on. Oh, BTK, right?
BTK started in 74. You
So,
also had Sam Little who was killing during this time.
right.
Of course, nobody knew who he was, but
And the thing is, yeah, the thing is it just seemed like an explosion of serial killers.
it
Um,
really did.
and it changed society
Mm-hmm.
noticeably. Um, for example, in the 60s, it was no big deal for people to go hitchhiking, young people to go hitchhiking. I had a brother who hitchhiked from Denver to Seattle,
Oh wow.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, it was like, oh, that's, you know,
Definitely more popular. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was like, wow, that's quite an adventure, but nobody was like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that.
Mm-hmm. And
And
it's definitely the serial killer 70s that kind of
absolutely
killed
did,
hitchhiking.
literally
Yeah.
at their own hands. Um, so, Seattle was still kind of a small town feel. The that's when people started locking their doors and shit,
Mm.
and being distrustful and more cautious and more suspicious, and it didn't help.
No, not at all.
Because these motherfuckers just they just go out and do their stuff and they don't care.
Yeah. And in huge part, if you allow yourself to fear them at that level, they win, I think. Because
Yeah,
they
I mean,
huge.
yeah, I mean, you take care of yourself. You don't do stupid shit,
Right.
but at the same time, you don't just huddle in the corner either.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a huge part of the people that we study on here, whether they admit it or not, are motivated by that sort of control over the public, too, that they
Yeah,
have. It's why they follow their own coverage
right,
so obsessively. It's why they return to crime scenes like they do and all that sort of behavior. It's
right.
grandiosity,
I mean,
narcissism.
some of them. Di- so you look like at Hillside. One of the distinctions between, say, a Bundy and a Bianchi is that Bianchi put his victims out to be found, and
Yeah,
Bundy hid his.
yeah. Oh, exactly.
Oh, we
That's
didn't even get into the girlfriend in Bellingham. The the one who
no, we
tried
did
to
a little bit.
no,
Or
the
are we
one who
talking about a different one?
yeah, the one that tried to get him out,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
right?
that was a bit down the road where Bianchi, with some female acolyte, hatched a plan to escape. And what she would do is smuggle his semen out of jail
Veronica
and then
Compton was her name.
go and plant it at a new murder scene that she was going to effect. The problem, though, she totally botched it.
Yeah.
So that
Yes,
didn't
yeah.
work.
I mean, this is what's stupid. They're taking his DNA and planting it on a crime scene. How does that get him out?
Good question.
It doesn't get him out.
No, not at all.
They're not going to
It
say,
just ties
"Oh,
you to a
well,
new
shit.
one.
Well, your DNA found its way out of jail. Oh well, we guess you didn't do all these other things." It's bullshit. Um, apparently this woman that she tricked into going to a motel room, and tried
Hmm.
to strangle. She was she worked part time as a tree surgeon. She handled chainsaws and big branches and shit like that. She was not frail, and she fought
Yeah,
the hell back.
horrible choice of target, man.
Really poor, really poor. Um,
Wow.
and so she ended up going to jail over that, and it didn't help Bianchi at all.
Here's a quote from her. There I was with the Manson women and Carol Bundy. All I could think was, what the hell have I done? This isn't me. Which, Carol Bundy, for people who don't know, was the female accomplice of, I believe it was Doug Clark, the
Uh,
Sunset Strip killer, another LA killer. Yeah, she totally fucked that up as a copycat. And the thing is, if you really want to copycat that correctly,
yeah.
you would have to get the ligatures correct.
And you don't put the primary suspect's, you know, DNA in the scene because that doesn't make it not him. All the other
No, not at
things.
all. Not at all, unless you're going to try to say that he had consensual sex. But even that's a stretch, knowing his history.
Yeah, it's just
There's a.
ridiculous.
I dropped a link to Doug Clark in the chat for anybody interested. Now, Carol
So,
Bundy, I think, is one who's dead, but he is still alive.
yeah, these Bianchi may have had a good IQ, but he really fucked that one up. He did not think that through.
Yeah, desperate.
Yeah.
Man.
And he
Yep.
didn't get the death penalty, huh?
No. No, I guess they still have it in Washington.
Yeah.
So at that time, if he would have been convicted in California, he wouldn't have gotten it.
Yeah. Oh, he's in Walla Walla, isn't he? Still,
Yeah, yeah, he's incarcerated there.
where Ridgeway is.
Yep, they are neighbors.
Interesting. I wonder if they know each other.
That's a good question. With a lot of those,
Yeah.
a lot of those jails in California have more than one serial in them too.
I mean, death row people, they kind of have their own wing uh, of a prison. Typically, they're kept separate. But neither of those guys are on death row, so maybe they're buds.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe we should get Ann Bremner on the show and ask her what she knows about that.
We
She
should.
she was the Green River Killer prosecutor.
Yeah, if you're listening in, let us know, and we'd be happy to have you on any day.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're going to run a little short today, and that's all right. We
Uh,
got the material covered. Um, unless you got
yeah.
anything else to add about the Hillside Stranglers, there were two of them.
I think we pretty much got it covered.
Awesome. We're gonna
I
give
go
you
into.
go.
Oh, go ahead.
No, no, you go.
Oh, I was gonna say might get more into malingering when I get a chance to read a bit more about it. There's a book that I have on forensic psychology that has a huge section dedicated on how to detect it.
Oh, that's interesting.
I even checked my neurology textbook, and there's a section on it too.
One of the things about psychopaths that I read about is that the psychiatrist who developed the 10-page quiz to detect psychopaths, and he would take his team into prisons because there's a high concentration of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept warning. He'd always warn his team, not to get suckered in by these guys because they can be charming when they want to be, and yet they would still get suckered in every now and then, and then they'd feel really bad about it, and he'd say, well, because that's what
Mm.
they do.
It was Robert Hare, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, but I don't remember, but I think it might be. Yeah.
I need to read his book. I've been meaning to. But
Okay,
yep, I think we got it.
we got it. Hillside Strangler. All
Tune
right.
in next week, one and all, for our coverage of the 60th anniversary of one of the crimes that really defined true crime. That was the Clutter family murder
Oh
out in
man.
Kansas. And Truman Capote's In Cold Blood came from this. So we'll be doing that on the 60th anniversary of it next week.
Sounds good. Good night, everybody.
Night all.